Good morning or afternoon or evening, whenever you're seeing this. I've been asked to present a discussion on radical collaboration. I'm Bill Shireman. I run a group called Future 500, which is about bringing big corporations and activist groups together, usually at war with each other, but we bring them together to solve problems of climate, forests, ocean protection, so that we can actually live together on the planet. I also have devoted myself to a cause called In This Together. It's at inthistogetheramerica.org. And it similarly is about bringing conservatives and progressives, the left and the right, Republicans, Democrats, libertarians, others together to try to save democracy. So, and radical collaboration is the way that we do our work. Now, I'm just coming off seeing the most disturbing presidential debate in the history of the country, certainly. And I imagine that most people who saw it are thinking, how could we possibly have anything to do with the people who support him? And that's understandable. But what we saw was not just a clash between men. It was a clash between two media narratives, two frightening worlds that are presented to us to keep us apart from one another and keep us together. One of those is to frighten people to the extreme right by calling attention to a world in which socialists are coming for your guns and your money and your freedom. The other media narrative is designed to press people to the left, and its message is the nationalists, those old white men, those white supremacists are coming to oppress women and college educated and people of color. And those are the worlds that we live in. Those worlds are intensified by big data, which now has about 29,000 data points on each of us, on everyone. And those data points are used to trigger reactions in our brain that help to motivate us to be where they want us to be on the web and cable TV and so on, so that we receive the messages that they have calculated will cause a reaction, a predictable reaction. A certain percentage of us, could be 1 out of 1,000, but it doesn't matter if we fit the algorithm. So we're living in these two very separate worlds. And here's what we learn about each other. We know in our world that most people are pretty reasonable, but all we hear about that other world is the most extreme, the most disturbing ideas about that other world. So we gather together, and that tends to bring us closer together with some of the extreme views, and we just repeat those views to each other. So that's our worlds. So last night, this debate was a clash of those two worlds, and they don't work together very well when the fear is as deep as it can be. We are now days away from the most divisive election in the history of the country, at least in the last 150 years. We know that 4 things might happen on that day. We know that one thing definitely will happen the next day, and we know that one thing can happen if we choose it. 4 things that might happen. Trump might win decisively, in which case Sanders Nation will erupt in anger. They'll try to tear apart the Democratic Party for losing, and that will be tumult. If Biden wins decisively, then Trump Nation will erupt in anger, and they too will try to divide and extinguish diversity within the Republican Party and have it for themselves. Or we'll have a close election where it's uncertain, but either Biden or Trump appears to be the winner, and the other one pulls out the lawyers, and we are engaged in weeks of constitutional crisis. Either way, we know that this is going to happen. 50 million people at least are going to be scared on that day, on November 4th. 50 million people scared. They're going to be hyped up by social media. They're going to be hyped up by this big data, and they are going to be ready for danger, and some of them are going to be taking that danger into their own hands, and that's not a healthy thing. Why is all this happening? The reality is, if you penetrate this data machine, about 70% of us can actually get along. We can come to agreements, even if we don't agree with all of it, even on the big wedge issues that are used to divide us: abortion, guns, immigration, and climate. About 70% of us can agree on solutions. It's only 15% on either side that are diametrically opposed and can't see the possibility of agreeing or common ground. But those are the messages that we hear. If we're on the left, we hear only the extreme right. And if we're on the right, we hear only the extreme left. And that teaches us to stay on our side so that we're not going across. Functionally, that's great for the political industry. That is an industry designed to manage public policy on behalf of the status quo, even when the status quo doesn't really want it. The political industry that uses big data and uses social media to divide us in this way would like the voters out of the way. They don't want that 70% middle to coalesce, because that takes policymaking out of their hands and puts it in the hands of the people. That would be something radical, like democracy. Now, these folks are not evil either. Nobody actually planned the system that we have. This system came about because it worked in the marketplace. It happens to be a profit center that serves the political industry. It's a way to make money. It's a way to do their jobs and maximize revenues. But what it's turned the political industry into is essentially a protection racket, a legal protection racket, where the mechanisms for creating risk and for providing protection from that risk are codified, legal, and they're often running. We are all complicit in this process. Of course, some people are making a lot more money and gaining a lot more power than others, but we're all in this. There's no enemy to destroy. What needs to happen is what we call radical collaboration. Now, radical collaboration is doing what you probably fear doing more than most anything else, and that is to engage with those evil people that you see on the other side. If you're on the left, it means engaging with people that you think are white supremacists, radical nationalists, idiots. If you're on the right, it's engaging with those people that you've been told are radical socialists, really communists fundamentally, who hate democracy, want to tear it apart, and hate American values and want to destroy them. Because when we do that, we'll discover that about 70% of that other side is actually not that, and we begin to see the humanity in each other. So what do we do about this? Well, a couple of years ago, Trammell Crow, the founder of EarthX, a Republican environmentalist, a contradiction in that sense, became aware that the nation is unable to take action on the biggest problems that we face, including climate change, unable to take action on it, not because one party or the other, was elected, but because we have this political business model that has now infected the news media as well, and is also the media, the business model for media. So he gathered a group of his friends, and I was among them, who were of high net worth and concerned that they weren't able to get solutions to happen. We've been meeting now for 2 years, and we have, thanks to folks like Catherine Murdoch, who is the chief investor in Citizen Data, we have invested in and built a new database platform that appeals to that broad 70% center. Right? It uses big data. It scares me a little bit, but we use it not to divide people into those chambers, but to find their commonalities and to unite them. And Charles Munger Jr. here in California and Marty Wilson and others invested in a very sophisticated predictive model that identifies how we bring groups of bridge builders and problem solvers together to actually solve the problems that we face. We've been very successful at identifying 45 million bridge builders, 15 million problem solvers across the country now. And it's time for us to join together. What this country needs is not a third party right now, because the system is built to keep those two parties in control. It's been a monopoly on the left and a monopoly on the right for a long time. The system is built for that. But we do need a third group, a future party, if you will, to bring us together. So we have formed an informal organization, if you will, inthistogetheramerica.org. inthistogetheramerica.org. So I encourage you all to go to inthisamerica.org and join together. The magic number right now is 5 million. If we can recruit 5 million people and connect us together so that we all recognize we're a part of this future party, then we have the electoral power to break the business model that dominates today. We've got that 5% that can turn every election from the polarizers to problem solvers. And we can do it in the primary so that in the general election, we actually have a choice between two problem solvers, one from the right, one from the left. The left and right are not fundamentally at odds with one another. They simply have an inborn or trained worldview that differs. But nature is all about diversity and bringing things together. Radical collaboration is nature's strategy for creation. And so when we really look at the right and the left, we notice that the right has a worldview that says the world is basically threatening and that people are basically selfish. And so the right is hyper aware of risk. That's why we call them the protectors. They are aware of the risks that we face, more so than folks on the left. The left has a worldview that says nature is supporting, that what's out there is good, and that people are selfless, basically. Now, most people don't agree with the extremes on either, but that's the worldview that we come with. So the left's role is liberation. The right wants to protect. So the right likes soldiers, they like police, they like, fire and brimstone ministers. The left wants to liberate. So they distrust police, they distrust soldiers, they don't react well to the fire and brimstone. But they all are brought together because what could be better than to have a population that consists of people who are protecting what we have and people who are liberating our potential? That's the magic. That's what's built into us. This artificial divide between the 15% on the far left and the 15% on the far right is a construct that we can destroy. And we can destroy it readily by bringing folks together. So please come to inthistogetheramerica.org. Recognize that November 3rd is not the most important date here. It's November 4th when the anger and the frustration could come to a boil, and that we need 5 million of us to come together to say, wait, we have the power to take back our democracy. All we have to do is join together across left and right. We do that, we can have our democracy back. I'm afraid it may take a few years to get there, but it really is a matter of when we decide. Maybe we need some more pain. Believe me, it's coming if we can't unite. But the sooner that we can bring ourselves together, the sooner we can be a beacon to the rest of the world and light a fire beneath democracy, not to burn it, but to expand it once again. So please join with us. Thank you.